I'm Stephen Howard. I'm course manager for HND and BA Games and Industry. My main role with this project is I'm really top end project manager. I make sure the whole team and the team leaders are following the correct design procedures to implement the client's brief.
My name's Kieran Richards. I'm the main 3D modeler lead for this project.
Yeah, I'm William Granthill and I am the 3D modeler, 3D artist. It's my job to create the 3D models for our games and also animate them when they go into the game engine.
My name is Michael Ellis and I've got two roles in this project. I'm the product manager, so I answer to the course leader, and I am technical lead, which means that I am responsible for all the systems in the game, particularly in UE4.
My name is Tom Haynes and I'm the lead texturer and UE4 assembler.
Initially, the Army and the Military Academy came to us asking for a virtual reality sort of first-person game to help new recruits and employees join the Army. So a three-stage sort of VR-based game. The first stage was all about the whole recruitment process, going to the offices, being interviewed by a sergeant major officer type, going through the typical list of questions, moving on from that process. If they pass, they move on to like assembling an SA-80 rifle, which they can then test on a shooting range, and finally they'll bring all that sort of like stuff together in the final phase where they get dropped into like a tsunami or an emergency zone or some sort of like earthquake scenario where they have to learn how to look at everything that's going on and triage the various events to help bring in the emergency service to help control the whole situation.
Hello, my name is Matthew Jordan. I am head of documentation and narrative and design in this project. I'm currently doing the high pitch. The high pitch for this project, unlike other projects that I have done previously, is completely different because in other projects I have done previously, I've had to sell the game. So the learning curve for this one has been kind of rough because instead of selling the game, I just clearly have to state what the game is about. And as a gamer, I have no real experience in RTSs or simulation or training, so I've really had to research and develop my vocabulary and an attitude towards approaching this pitch.
I'm Tom, I'm the lead concept artist for this, and I started off, since we have split into three phases, started off doing some concepts for each individual phase. This first phase is set in an office, so I did like 3 different thumbnail sketches to kind of get an idea of what the office would look like. I really wanted it to look like someone worked there every single day. So I had like loads of little like pens, mugs, everything to make it look like someone actually works there. I made 3, came up with some ideas of what assets would need to be modelled. Then from there I created an asset list. So that was the first one. I then, for the second one, I made it for the shooting range. This would be the table that you assemble the gun on with a lamp and a timer. And then secondly, you got here kind of a more panned out view from it. So you have the table there, and to your right here, you have the shooting range where you can test out the gun once you finish building it on the targets. This was also helpful in kind of helping the modelers understand what my kind of idea for the level was. And then finally, for the third phase, the disaster zone. Here's some reference images that look like kind of India as the area. I first did like a top-down map kind of idea of what kind of layout some of the buildings. Then I did like kind of down on the ground. This would be the headquarters, so you've got like the first aid centre and some tents. And then I have finally kind of in the action where you can see all the crumbled buildings. My kind of idea was that it wasn't too destroyed, like you could still make out that this was once a place that people had lived, but now within hours this has been completely destroyed. So there's like pharmacies and just everything thrown about, like inside stuff, like radiators, bathtubs, it's all been thrown outside now.
Like, so we've got that little bolt on there, which is literally just a free test up. And we get this and one. We've got
In this according to working information, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The bayonet, is that all right? Clamp on this or what is it?
It goes on here. so it fits in there with the muzzle there. So you fire through the hole there.
Okay, I thought it went trapped on somewhere else.
This is forward already at that point, I think.
Yeah, so you
Yeah, so the
safety
next.
pin, magazine out.
No,
He's
I'm
going back
rebuilding.
Oh, you're rebuilding, okay.
Magazine in. Safety.
So at the moment, I am in charge of building the SA-80 rifle that's part of phase 2, so it needs to have a fully modelled interior plus exterior. The best way I've thought about going about it is making sure the interior is fine first. So my main reference has been welded guns, as they more or less do weapon strips for every weapon that they have in their game, so been the perfect reference to me. So far I've got all the firing mechanism and all the important wizardry that allows the gun to fire, and I've had like model sheets and reference imagery that just helped me out so far. I think I started off having the magazine and the pistol grip in the right places, and from then, with eye judgment really, I've just managed to model all the different complex pieces in and around the weapon. I'm hoping that whoever actually field strips this doesn't see any issues with it, because at least then I'll know it's done properly.
Okay, what we're working on at the moment, or what I'm working on, is the overall structure of the project. So I've got a main menu, which is a good place to start, and then from the main menu we can get into all three of our phases, and we can also get into our settings menus, and we can get into our credits. We haven't made anything yet, but that's who's made it. And from there we should be able to launch our level, which we can, which of course it's a VR template when we're not using VR, so it just starts you on the floor at the moment. So the most important thing to focus on at the moment will be UI. We know already that UI is difficult to do in VR, or for us because we're not adept at it yet. So what we're going to do is pull a first-person character into the scene, equip him with a UI interaction component, I think it's called, and then we're going to practice putting UI elements inside a blueprint wrapper, and so we'll be able to pull that into the scene, and it will just exist as a 3D object, and our character will have an interaction component, and hopefully be able to click it as if it were a mouse action. So we've got to put that sort of layer of abstraction between us and the UI widget, which is going to be that interaction component. That's the next thing that we're wrestling with.
Hi, I'm Helen Kent, and I was an asset modeller for the Army game, simulation game that we made. One of the assets I created was the mosque that you see in the background as you move around. I was given like a 10,000 limit poly limit to start with. So when I finally got this all done and I got it to its lowest as a whole form, it was 19,000. But then I had to re-edit like the pillars, get rid of like unnecessary edges to lower the polys, so I could get it down to like 5,000 after I'd taken off the back of the actual mosque. This is the full version. I've got one with the back off, which is what I ended up with in the end, and that was at 5,000 polys.
Yeah, so I'm currently working on the Mayo Army soldier that'll be in the game. This is before it goes to texturing in a minute. What I've got now is obviously I've got a pretty high polygon count in the top left corner. You can see all the little squares, and what I'm doing now is reducing it so it'll be worth actually being put into the game engine later on, because at the moment it would cause performance issues. So I'm just also going around the body and touching up and making it a little bit more like the clothing and make sure it actually looks more realistically like clothing again before it goes to the texturing stage of the project. So yeah.
My name is Ethan Wishworth, and I've been doing 3D assets for the Army game, and this current one is Digger. I've spent a few days working on, just recently finished it. Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, but that's what that's what I do.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Flanders, and I'm baking normal map onto a low poly female civilian head, and this is the high poly version, and that's the low poly one, and I was projecting this high quality detail onto here. I have to first attach all the currently the face is in separate parts, so I have to attach it all, and then I'll go to render to setup, which will allow me to project the normal maps, make normal maps, and project it onto this model here.
I'm Michael Reed, and I'm the effects guy on the Army game, and I also deal with the audio. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm dealing with sand particles, because we're in a place which is very sandy, there's a lot of wind. So this is a sand particle, which is a special effect. This is also dynamic, so whenever it hits something, it rebounds off it like it naturally would in the real world. I'm also dealing with stuff like this explosion, which kind of has a bit of a sort of a nuclear mushroom sort of effect, so it comes up. So when the fire hits, it actually comes up and starts billowing out. Some of the other stuff we've got, it's probably better to show you in level. Give me a second. So yeah, if you have a look over here, and you can see some of the smoke effects, which was something that we really wanted in. We didn't want it just basic smoke, we wanted it to kind of look oily, because the stuff that's going on around here is not necessarily grenade explosions or anything like that, because it's a rescue mission. So we figured that in a place like that, in a small village, they would need oil to do certain things for cars and stuff, so we wanted to do the explosions so that it looked like it was something that had actually hit a drum of oil and was billowing up with the smoke. This is the sand in the actual editor, which is showing kind of which direction it's flowing in, the size of the particles, which is difficult because a lot of elemental things like sand, water, all that kind of thing are a much more difficult particle to do, because obviously we know what sand and water look like. And basically that's what I've been doing on the project.
At the moment, I've got the basic block out of our level with all the assets that people have made in it and all the assets I've textured. If I back out of in there at the moment, and what I'm doing now is testing it in VR to get the scale of everything right, because everything looks slightly different when you're in VR.
Okay, so we're in the studio today. We're going to record a piece of Foley for the Army game that we've been working on. So I'm going to kind of show you how my process works for doing that and getting that piece of Foley ready. Okay, so first we're going to record the Foley through the microphone. What do you expect to achieve in the next 4 years? Okay, so that's the piece of Foley recorded. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to edit it. So we take that piece of Foley and we're just going to trim a little bit there off the end, like so. And then we're going to go in the beginning and maybe trim a tiny bit off it there. So we're going to split that back. And now we're going to play the piece of Foley. What do you expect to achieve in the next 4 years? Okay, so basically what we would do now is we would render that out as a WAV, and then it can go and it's ready for putting in the game, and that's how we record Foley. Cheers.
Okay, so we've got most of our mechanics now down for phase 1, which is the interview phase. If I just show the editor, Tom, concept guy, and myself have done a few tests to see what would look better on the whiteboard. Our idea is that the question is going to be on a whiteboard in the office, and then the player will be able to select one of 5 buttons on the desk to pick their answer. So that's what that looked like. We picked this bit here is just a Just a test to make sure that the mechanic works, and what I mean by that is making sure that we can change the question at will. We generate the buttons pick up the input, and then when the player clicks on an input, we change to the next question. So we've got a little demo of that. We've rigged up our first-person shooter, guys, so the gun is unnecessary, but I like it anyway.
What are the 3 main reasons that you want to join the army?
It's great, right? It's great, I love it. So the player gets to look at these buttons. These buttons will be raised up, they'll be on a desk, and the player will either use a touch controller or a line trace from their HMD, their head-mounted display. But for now, for testing, we can just...
How much information do you already know about the job, the lifestyle and the training?
And then you select A to E based on where the answers here will...
What hobbies do you have in your spare time?
Love it. So we've got 20 of these questions at the moment.
Do they support you?
Do
you think you are emotionally stable and mature enough for this job?
It's good, right? It's good. So we could be have up to 70 questions in this phase. So what we're doing is recording them in batches, and Mike's delivered, I think, 20 questions so far.
What are the 3 main reasons that you want to join the army? What hobbies do you have in your spare time? What does your family think about you joining the army? Do they support you? Do you?
Dan, what are you doing?
Right, what I'm doing is I got the face model of the interviewer, and I'm listening to the audio when he's asking questions, and I'm animating their facial movements depending on like what they say.
Okay.
Well, the other spring on the middle is a separate component, but you don't take it off.
I think we need to do is some minor things. The lights, it would be really nice if we get some misses on there, get a little bit of glow.
Yeah.
We can do that in phase 1.
Yeah, cool, okay. Obviously, I think you've been playing around with the VR. I think the scale's slightly out of whack, or the height of the camera needs sorting out.
The scale's too big.
Yeah, a little too big. The basket's massive.
This is the final version of Phase 3. This is the disaster zone, where you'll be helping out civilians and trapped people and dealing with their casualties. This is the level that I put together using all the assets from everyone in the class. This is it. This is the top-down view using the level plan that Matty made. These houses that Ethan made, everything in the scene was made by someone in the class. It's come together really well. Here's it down in there. We've got Helen's mosque in the background there. I dealt with all the lighting. Mike dealt with all the particle effects. These wires going around are splines in the level that can be manually edited, manually placed, and they really brought the level to life. I've also added a post-processing volume, which helps give it that kind of warm feeling that we really wanted to go for. I think that's everything I've added. Oh, I've also added some fog as well to make it kind of like difficult to see. I added some really dense areas. It's because visibility is a big problem in these kind of disaster scenes.
Cornwall Ellis, Roger! Check that out, Roger! Rifleman Hayes, Cornwall Hill! Check that out, Cornwall Hill! Rifleman Richards! Affirmative! Check that out, affirmative! Right.
Can you tell us your thoughts, John, if that's okay?
Yeah, like I say, just I find it overwhelming how realistic it's all looking. You know, it looks like I'm looking at an actual range when I look down the range. You know, the desk, everything in the range, and it does feel like I am in this ring.
We started off very slow because we didn't really have a very broad idea of what we wanted. Thanks to John and his input, we were able to get a really structured idea for especially phase 3. But without his input, God knows what our game would be right now.
Yeah,
It wouldn't be anywhere near as close.
Authenticity to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, so started off very slowly. We had rough ideas where we wanted to go with it, but then, like I said, the last few weeks it's progressed massively to nearly a fully fledged game.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of feedback from John and Steve to really make the scenes look realistic, and they know what they're talking about, and it's always shown. Like, once I've added what they suggested, I'm like, yeah, I should have done that from the beginning. It's always been great.
Yeah, and as a modeler myself, it's nice to show him a piece of work and him to not find any faults with it. So yeah, it's I found my own little faults with it.
Maybe because it's the last few weeks and he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
That too.
I'd say surpassed expectations, I think would be the word. I think what we thought about at the beginning, a few months ago, 12 weeks ago, 11 weeks ago, compared to what we've got now, and then our fully working game that we can actually give to the army, I think we've done incredibly well as a team, just to even get this far. Well, obviously how late we started and how a little bit slow at the beginning was to get going. So yeah, I think from what we think now, I think we are pretty happy with what the stage we're currently at.
I'd say that going back to what you said about the team, I think that's been one of the biggest, it's been one of the nicest things to witness and be a part of, which is definitely the whole group coming together. And as me as the new guy from last term, I think I found that easier than some. And I think that the improvement in people this term, I think, is obvious. I don't know if you guys agree with it. Most people have just stepped right up. And personally, I was once the requirements for phase 3 really kicked in, I got a little bit scared, and I didn't think that we would be able to deliver it. And after a lot of looking, I cracked a few things, and I'd call them personal victories. Really, I would. I think the army phase 3 is like my I did that.
I think you'd go insane if you didn't celebrate your own accomplishments.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I'm looking forward. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think the deadline is almost like whatever. It's the show that I'm concerned about.
We're definitely talking more about the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the thought of it being able to go somewhere else after this would be awesome. Absolutely.
That's good.
But for the students who are using it, they haven't got to do all that background work, and they're getting a massive experience over it.
That's really cool.